highlights. I'm sorry. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 3 of the Miskatonic AV Club, a Mythos Busters production. I'm Sean, and oddly enough, still already with me is Ian. And
I'm still Ian.
and hanging in there as well still is Scott.
I'm pretty sure I'm still Scott.
And by popular demand, all
Popular?
all of the 6 people who voted. No, wait, 7, because we did have a deciding vote.
There was 7.
We are tonight going to be reviewing the Arkham Horror Core Set Rogue cards. So, Ian Sploosh, here we go.
Locked
Ian,
and loaded.
Why don't you go ahead and start us out on our Gator?
I surely will. So Skids O'Toole is the rogue investigator with the ex-con subtitle. 2 will, 3 intellect, 3 combat, and 4 agility. The criminal trait, of course. His free action is to, during your turn, spend 2 resources, and you may take an additional action this turn. Limit once per turn. The Elder Sign effect, which I would argue is probably the best Elder Sign effect in the core. +2, if you succeed, gain 2 resources with 8 health and 6 sanity.
I'm not going to argue with you on that Elder Sign effect. That's pretty baller.
Yeah, that's a really great Elder Sign effect.
So then, Scott, would you like to read us his signature good card?
Yeah.
I suppose it's an event, isn't it?
It is an event. It's on the Lamb. It's a 1-cost event, and it has 4 pips down the side. There is a knowledge, an agility, and 2 wild. It's a tactic. Skids O'Toole deck only. Fast. Play after your turn begins. Until the end of the round, non-elite enemies cannot attack you.
That's
and I'll round good effect.
I'll round us out with the treachery here, so we can see Skids as a whole, as an entity. It is Hospital Debts, which is a weakness treachery, has the task trait. Revelation, put Hospital Debts into play in your threat area. Free triggered action. Move 1 resource from your resource pool to Hospital Debts. Limit twice per round. Force at the end of the game. If Hospital Debts has fewer than 6 resources on it, you earn 2 fewer experience this round. First of all, big props for using fewer properly.
Yes.
Card text. Stannis is proud. So, Ian, I had an uninterrupted gush session about Agnes. If people are watching this in recording order, here's Skids. Go.
Sure. So Skids is super well balanced, except for 1 glaring weakness, which I'll get to in a second. But with 3 intellect and 3 combat, he's kind of got a good basis for the 2 important areas of the game, and then 4 agility to evade the crap out of anything that moves. And his ability kind of points to what Skids is all about. What you're trying to do is just get more action, and gobbling up resources. So being able to convert resources to actions, which I've been harping in our other videos about how important actions are and how every action counts. Being able to get more of them on demand as long as you have the resources is kind of a big deal. So when you put all those together, he kind of turns into this package that lets you cover a lot of ground quickly. But that 1 glaring weakness, which I mentioned, is his low willpower. So treacheries can be kind of a thing for Skids. Any will test, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd also like to point out that the kind of template for the rogue, I love this one the best, even though I think the Mystic one looks cooler. This one just fits. It's like a napkin with a copy stain on it. He's just flying by whatever resources he has at the moment. Talk about On the Lam, because I've played Skids a few times. He's probably the investigator that I've got figured out the least. How useful is On the Lam to you on an average basis, using its actual event or chucking it for icons?
I find myself checking it to a key test quite often. The fact that it has 4 icons and 2 of them are wild, a lot of times it's kind of the ace up your sleeve for a key test. The using it as event, maybe I feel like maybe 2/3 of the time I've used it for icons, 1/3 of the time for the actual effect. And what I found most useful is to kind of get around those attack of opportunities, have some wiggle room to do other stuff. Is where it can really come in handy.
But the enemies stay
Besides,
engaged with you. That's the thing that hangs me up on it, is they don't
yeah,
attack you, but they stick with you, which is actually kind of thematically counter to being on the lam, right?
they do. And I mean, I definitely wouldn't argue that his signature weakness is stronger. I mean, his signature asset is, well, I guess it's an event. His signature card, his signature strength, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't argue that it's stronger than some of the other ones that are assets, just from the perspective that it's an event, it's one time. So, you kind of have to time it right. So it's not the strongest. I guess it's kind of what I would say. It's not why you play Skids for, but it definitely can help you out of some tight spots.
But I mean, just a 3 random icon, or 2 to anything, or 3 if you're doing agility or intellect. That's not bad.
Yeah. Hmm.
Scott, have you played around with Skids much?
I've played him through two campaigns. I honestly, on the lam, I think there was one game I used it for its actual ability, and I honestly forget the scenario because I think it was more of a card. Like I could have done everything I need to do, but on the lam just let me do it cooler. Um, it's usually a skill test, Chuck, for me. I find his Elder Sign is super powerful. The fact that he's kind of got that built-in resource sink, so if you're, just drawing all your zero cost cards or whatnot, and you can just turn it into actions, and that's incredibly valuable. His low willpower sucks for a lot of treacheries, but
But at least he's
he's an
got
interesting
more than the
character.
minimum 5 in his sanity, so that helps, I think.
I guess so. Save yes. But I mean, there's even treacheries that like make you discard clues or get rid of assets, or I mean, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm thinking also of the what do you call them? The print on demand ones.
Sure. So
Like there's
Ruguru and Carnivale.
yeah, I've taken him through a couple of those, and there's some willpower testing things in there. They're just brutal, some of them, but
Fair enough.
yeah.
How big of a detriment do you guys feel hospital debts is? Now, I feel like that penalty, 2 fewer experience, that is rough. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
right up there with a mental trauma for Roland, whose biggest weakness is his sanity. Have you guys ever found it to be an issue to get it paid off by the end of the game?
Um, I mean, if you just resign at the right time, it just goes away.
There is that. God, if
Yeah.
only real life hospital debts were like that.
That easy to get rid of.
Well, if
Yeah.
you resign, okay, I won't go there.
It depends on when you draw it. I guess the good thing is it doesn't hit you during the game. Like the negative aspect of it doesn't hit you during the game. It's kind of like a creeping thing where it's not really going to be totally obvious how much it's hurting you, but when you look over the grand scope of a campaign and how much experience you missed out on, then potentially the thing I do like about it is at least it's not sucking actions from you, since it's a free trigger to move the resources. The only thing it's really costing you is the resources. So
I mean,
that's part of it that doesn't hurt quite as much.
it
Mm-hmm.
might be. God, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's Roland is actively hurting him during the game, and then also hurts him if he doesn't get rid of it. This doesn't actually do anything to you until the end of the game, and maybe it might be worth trading to experience to use those resources instead to get the extra action, to get that extra cultist in scenario 2.
Yeah, I've definitely done that. Just taking the hit on the chin.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it depends too on what scenario. I mean, what the experience. Like, if they're only going to give us 3 or 4 in a scenario on an average playthrough, 2 is a lot, right? But if you do really great in the first scenario of our core set campaign, well, you're going to get 8 or 9 experience. So is 2 that big of a hit? Depends. So I think it really depends on which campaign you're playing, how big this is going to affect you.
True. All right. So Skids, any last word on Skids there, Ian? I'll probably give that to you because it's only fair.
I don't think so. I think a lot of the fun comes in the rogue cards, which we're gonna look at, where a lot of the flavor comes in.
All right. Well, why don't you lead us in there, since you gave him at least like the title that's printed on this card. It doesn't exist for me anymore. This dude is a Mississippi manatee to me, from now until the
Yeah.
end of this game. So since you named him that, I feel like it's oh so appropriate that you should get to talk about him.
Sure. So Leo de Luca is a 6-cost asset with the true subtitle of the Mississippi Manatee, no matter what's printed on the card. With 1 intellect icon, the ally in criminal traits, and pretty simple. You may take an additional action during your turn, 2 health and 2 sanity, and takes up an ally slot, obviously. So super expensive, but that's definitely a powerful, just passive effect, just giving you an extra action.
If you can get this guy out first turn, and if you have like an emergency quiche in your hand to recover the resource cost, wow! Like getting an extra turn or an extra action for like 8-9 turns, maybe more. It's insane. Plus, he's a 1 health, 1 sanity sink as well.
Yeah. I mean, so even if this card said you draw an extra card each turn, or you gain an additional resource each turn, he might still be close to worth it. But it's not even that. You get any additional action during your turn.
Mm-hmm. I
Now,
mean,
it
6
really,
is a lot.
yeah, 6. That's the biggest thing. Is 6 is a lot, and it'll be interesting to see what's going to be competing for that ally slot in the future. We already have one in this in the core set itself that actually I think competes for that ally slot pretty well. But yeah, no, I think he's a solid card, and especially in kind of widespread maps where you need to cross large portions of, large tracts of land
Mm-hmm.
to actually, accomplish what you're looking to accomplish. That extra action can count for a lot.
Mm-hmm. The games that I've had him out first turn have gone incredibly better than other games I've played. Like just having him out like 4 actions per turn versus 3 is just I realize it's a 6 cost and a card right off the top, but that's nothing compared to what those extra actions get you, I think.
Yeah, so for me, my thinking has kind of evolved on this card over time. I think he's super strong and super useful and definitely worthwhile. Thinking about the core set campaign and potentially other campaigns in the future, uh, I don't think it's any like big statement to say the ally slot is one of the most important ones in your deck, because the allies tend to have very powerful effects. And so there have definitely been times in the core set campaign where I've chosen to prioritize other allies instead of Leo, just from the simple fact of the actions they have proved to be so useful. And we'll get to one in particular in this rogue review, and I can elaborate on that a bit more. But uh,
Well, even
sometimes it's an issue of like you want to be able to do fewer actions more effectively versus just having a bunch of actions and you're not able to be as successful with those actions, if that makes sense. But it depends.
quality over quantity, I guess. Yeah, and I mean, we were even talking about that, and talking about we skipped over Skids' deck building rules, but he gets access to up to level 2 Guardian cards, and we were talking about it in the Roland the Guardian review. That beat cop is often a decent grab for him too, especially if he's going to lean more toward the combat heavy stuff. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
Skids more than anyone else in the core has competition over their ally slot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's tough.
because he's got like both of his in class ones are good, and both of his out class or his off class ones are both individually good, and he could potentially take any of them. So
Yeah.
All
I do
right.
like the beat cop and the kind of multiplayer builds where you're going very fighty. And the difference between 3 combat and 4 combat can be huge. So, yeah.
All right. Well, just continuing the discussion then on the Mississippi Manatee. Ian, do you want to just read the second one here?
Sure. So it's basically the exact same thing except for 5 costs instead of 6 costs, and it costs 1 XP. Everything else is the same.
There you
So
go.
you're basically spending 1 XP to spend 1 fewer resource for the rest of your campaign.
I feel like if you're sticking it out with Leo, great. But I don't know that you spend that if for any other reason throughout the campaign you expect you're going to kind of end up with a different ally.
Yep.
Right?
That's where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to be your one, the ability to first turn, first action, just play him, and then you have your normal 3 actions with no money, unfortunately. It's a pretty decent upgrade for 1 XP, which is, depending on how many hospital deaths you have, could be nothing, could be a lot.
Yeah. And Lord of All Cheese points out in the chat, and I think it's worth breaking the core only discussion rule here, is that we've had a card spoiled for this next cycle. That's Charisma. It's a rogue card, and they get an additional. It is a rogue card, right? It's not neutral. Or is it neutral?
I think it's neutral.
It might be neutral.
I think it might be neutral.
Anyway, you could potentially get an additional ally slot, so that would solve. I think that. God, I don't know. That might put Skids. That might put Skids at the top of the list because he has access to some really good allies.
It's pretty good. But
Okay, so moving on from the manatee, we go from a large mammal to a very small little firearm. Scott, would you?
That was a segue.
all right, you saying I have a small firearm? All right, a 41 Derringer. Did I pronounce that right? We don't have guns in Canada. Derringer?
Derringer, yeah.
Okay. 3 cost, 0 level asset. It has 1 combat pip. It's an item, a weapon, a firearm, and it's illicit. It uses 3 ammo, and then for an action, you spend 1 ammo, you fight. You get +2 combat for this attack. If you succeed by 2 or more, this attack deals +1 damage, and of course, it takes up a hand slot. It'd be cool if it didn't, just thematically, because it's like
because
so
it's so
small.
small.
Gun. Yeah, but I guess to shoot a gun, you're not, shooting it in your pocket. Hopefully,
I don't know. I've seen some movies.
yeah.
People do things with jackets. There's an
Stash it away
implication.
somewhere.
So there's kind of this theme a little bit running through Rogue that if you succeed by more than a certain amount, you get a bonus for this. Looking at this compared to our 45 automatic, costs a little bit less, 1 less ammo, a little bit more combat, but you are not guaranteed the +1 damage. And I think the +1 damage is what makes weapons great.
Agree.
Yes.
And this having to succeed by 2 or more, I mean, sometimes, especially in Skids, like 2 or more is actually quite a big hurdle to get through.
Yeah.
And what's funny is the enemies that you really need the extra damage against are the ones
Yeah.
that are harder to get the extra damage against with the 2 or more conditional. So I'm pretty negative on this card. Maybe there are rogues in the future who won't have access to the 45 and the machete like Skids do, or like Skids does. Wow. But for Skids, I don't ever see the need to take this card.
I wish I liked it more because
Yeah.
I like the theme of it.
I want to like it.
Having this small little secret gun, but yeah, I can't really argue with that. I like that it gives you a +2 attack, which is more than the usual +1 of trying to help you get to that 2 or more success. But I mean, generally, you're already kind of planning to go 2 above a target, right, is kind of your safe zone. And if you want this to get the +1 damage, then you're having to plan for 4 or more. It's I don't know. The math doesn't really work for me on this. I totally agree with what you said, Scott, that the damage amplification is what you're really looking for weapons to do, and the fact that it's not guaranteed makes me sad.
I mean, if we're just looking at skids and weapons, what if I told you there's a weapon that costs the same amount, doesn't need ammo?
Yep.
You know, like machete. Why would you take
Why would
Derringer
you take
over
the blue
machete?
pill?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially bad for Skids, yeah, because he has Guardian access.
Mhm.
Now that said, against small enemies, sure. But
But if they're small, they're probably not. They're probably like rat, have 1 damage anyway. So, I don't know.
I ended up building a Skids build that kind of looked at the talent that we're going to talk about. Looked at the several effects that we're going to see throughout this review of the succeed by 2 or more effects. And it's cool when you get all the pieces there and it's kind of working for a little bit, but all it takes is one auto fail and the entire machine falls apart. So, I don't know. And we'll talk about that with the skill in a second. But yeah, I don't know. Don't like Derringer. I like the idea of it, but in practice, Skids just, he doesn't need it.
Yeah, hard to pass.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to pickpocketing. That is a 2-cost asset. Has an agility pip. It is a talent. And it's illicit. God, when we get to the cops and robbers cycle, that's gonna matter.
Oh yes.
In reaction, after you evade an enemy, exhaust pickpocketing. Draw 1 card. So card draw in this game, as we've kind of discussed at length on the podcast and elsewhere, is that it's generally good, but it is tempered in this game by the weaknesses. Though I will say that I don't think the weaknesses should stop you from drawing cards. You're probably going to see them eventually anyway. There are situations where like maybe this is the only weakness left in my deck, and right now it would absolutely wreck me, so I don't want to draw a card. But on the whole, generally, you should just draw cards and not be terrified of your weaknesses. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you just have to hope for the best.
Hope for the best, plan for the worst, right?
Yeah, and if you're drawing more cards, it means you have more options when your weakness does come up. If you have a bunch of cards, you probably have more options on how to deal with it.
So that said, a little bit of card draw in Rogue here. That's contingent. It costs a couple resources, and it's also contingent on evading an enemy. I'm middling on this one. Rogues tend, at least Skids for sure, tends to evade. But I don't know. I think this is a 1-up at most for me in most decks.
I'm agreeing with 1-of. If I see it early, it's usually pretty good to put down. I mean, it doesn't take up a slot, which is nice. Yeah, and it's up to 1 card per turn, right? Because you have to exhaust it. So it's decently good, but I don't think it'd ever be a 2-of.
It's definitely a build dependent card for sure. Because rogues and skids specifically can either go kind of very fighty combat heavy, in which case they're probably going to be blowing the face off of enemies more so than evading them, in which case you just skip pickpocketing. You could just go 0 of easily, which I've done. But if you're going for the more dodgy style and you planning out the course of your game, you think you're going to be evading enemies quite a bit, then it has a place. But probably even then, maybe is a 1-of.
Yeah.
Seems fine. All right. So then moving on from there, Ian, I know you're pretty positive on this next one. And again, in the cops and robbers cycle, this one's super going to matter.
Yeah. So make some money from pickpocketing and you make some from burglary. So burglary is 1 cost asset with 1 intellect icon. It's also a talent, and it's also illicit. As an action, you exhaust burglary to do an investigate action. If you succeed at that investigate action, then instead of discovering the clues, you gain 3 resources instead. This is a shenaniganery. Oh, that's a word. A shenanigan card for sure.
Shenaniganery.
I'm not even gonna try and give up. That's all yours.
Yeah, so important to note that this can't stack with other investigate actions. So I think maybe new players might look to maybe stack this with a flashlight, maybe, or something else that would initiate investigate. It doesn't work that way. You are naked in your investigation test. But when you're sitting in a low shroud location, it's not a bad option to have. Especially since you can fuel so many of your other effects with said resources, that action is often well spent.
Yeah, and if you're, there doesn't have to be a clue there, which is key thing with like Roland's cover up, right? There has to be a clue there for him to actually use cover up. But here there could be no clues. It's a one shroud location, and you can just rob it. So
Yeah.
and if you look at the action advantage of it, so yeah, you have to pay 1 to put it down, and it costs you a card essentially. But with Skids' special powers, if you investigate successfully, you get 3 resources. You could pay 2 resources to get another action, so you're netting 1 resource every turn. You can just do this after the first turn. It's okay. I think it's pretty good.
And there are those situations where maybe you're moving across the map to address an enemy, or like go to the high shroud location with a bunch of clues, and you find yourself like, all right, well, if I go to this location, the enemy's going to engage me. It'd be my last action, so it'd be stupid to just sit there. So I'm not going to do that as my last action. But oh, hey, the shroud on this location is not terrible. Let's take a shot. And it's I think for 1 cost, this is not a bad option to just always have. I'm a 1 of for sure on this one in a Skids deck. Most of the time I think I'd be high enough to be a 2 of.
I haven't run burglary more than 1 of in my Skids decks yet, but it might be something I look into. I'm not really sure. Skids is my least played character.
Yeah, I know, me too. So Ian, your opinion is the one that actually carries some gravity here. So what do you think?
This is another card that I feel like somewhat is the build dependent and somewhat is player dependent too. Like the way I've kind of your mileage may vary for other Skids players, but the way I've kind of approached this is when I'm playing solo, just in general with a lot of investigators, I like to go at things a little meaner, trying to make sure I'm not spending actions on kind of extra stuff. And sometimes burglary falls into that extra stuff category that maybe I just want to run a lower cost curve instead of trying to gobble up these extra resources. That being said, obviously Skid's ability runs off of resources, and so basically what you're doing is instead of clicking for a resource, you're clicking for the chance at 3, which can bite you sometimes. I've definitely pulled the tentacle, and that's a sad moment. On the other hand, in multiplayer, again, you might have a little bit more breathing room to kind of focus on this more like stockpiling resources with burglary and funneling them into talents and doing all kinds of stuff. So I fall somewhere between 1 and 2, depending on the build, I guess is the short version of that.
Yeah, and I think if rogues continue down the line of fueling a lot of their abilities based on kind of having a surplus of resources, or turning resources into something else that you maybe not you wouldn't have access to without them, this holds more value. But yeah, so I love it as as flavor. It's a fun little card, especially in the first scenario of the core. If you're playing solo, you're like, oh, let's just burgle my own house for some reason. All right. So moving on to those those community dividing cards, we've got our rogue talent. It's the hard knock talent. Poor Scott.
Oh goodness. Oh, you give this to me, yeah, sure. Hard Knocks, 2. It has 1 combat and 1 agility pip. It's a talent. And of course, you can spend 1 resource to get +1 combat, or spend a resource to get +1 agility. Again, not a huge fan of these. However, I think this one is okay. I mean, it does 2 very important ones. Like if you really need to fight, really need to evade, it's going to keep you alive. And in Rogue, I mean, if you're going to have all that money in the world, if you're gonna burgle your own house, maybe this is good. Yeah, Ian, you're probably the better person to ask on this.
Yeah, this is of the skill boosting talents. This is one of the ones on the higher end for me, just because rogues and skids. That's what you're doing is gathering up resources. So you probably are going to have an extra stockpile around to pump one here one turn, pump another the next turn. And the other reason I like it is because Skids himself and some future theoretical rogue investigators that might come up in the next
You're
deluxe
allowed to
expansion,
reference Jenny. It's okay.
also known as Jenny, tend to have that kind of mid-range 3 stats for combat, and so you kind of need a little bit of extra juice because they're not getting that like big starting 4 that some of the investigators have, and so Hard Knocks is that extra juice for you, literally, figuratively, in terms of art, everything.
I don't have much to add. I'm with you guys on this one. I'm not generally over the moon on the talents, these kind of mercenary talents, but rogues tend to have more resources laying around compared to any other class, so probably more for the fight than anything else, because Skids generally wants to build kind of fighty and sometimes has a hard time getting there out of the gate, so this could kind of help close the gap in some ways, but I don't know. Peering into the future, I took 2 of these in an Ashcan Pete build that I have, because I built the entire rest of the deck like 2 cost and under, and it still has not done a whole lot for me yet. So I don't know. I think more than anything with these, it's the cost to play it down, because most of the time, that's the thing, is like it's not the cost once it's on the table. Once it's on the table, I'm fine with it. It's great.
Yeah.
It's just that most of the time I'm playing other things, and by the time I feel like, oh, it'd be great to have this, it's still in my hand and I have 3 resources on the table. It's like, ugh.
Yeah,
Maybe that just speaks to my aggro playstyle. Maybe for a more conservative playstyle, these are better cards, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in this game it's not just there's the cost of playing and also the action cost. So when considering your deck, it's not just the cost curve, but also I guess you could call it the action curve, as far as like how many of these kind of supplemental cards are you including that you're gonna have to spend actions on throughout the game to get on the board. That's something to consider.
Yep. So I know Gaff is being the most vocal hater in the in the chat right now. I'm sure when we post this to YouTube, there will be other people who will tell us we're wrong about the talents, but I don't know. I think it might be a playstyle difference, honestly. I don't think
I
they're
do think
bad
it's a
cards.
playstyle.
I don't think they're
Yeah.
bad cards by any means. I just think that the way I usually end up playing is like they sit in my hand more often than not. Anyway.
Yeah, I think I tend to be in that camp too, Sean. Like kind of the aggro. Maybe it's the Lord of the Rings training that
It
it's
might
just
be.
like
It might
I
be.
think it's conditioned us a certain way.
We need to talk to Nick, because he's the only one among us who has fresh eyes. Fresh eyes. Okay, so moving on then to Switchblade, which is another thing that we're going to talk about in a second. So it's a 1 cost asset, has an agility pip. It is it's an item, it's a weapon, it's melee, and it's illicit. Though were Switchblades actually illicit in the 20s? Like they're concealed weapons are illegal now, but were there actually laws against them in the 20s? Someone with more historical acumen can answer that. It's fast, which is cool, so you can play it without costing an action. And it has action fight. If you succeed by 2 or more, this attack deals +1 damage.
Ugh.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of on the same spot on this that I was with Derringer. Fast is cool, and I love the flavor of that. Succeeding by two
Yeah.
or more is kind of the issue for me. I don't like leaving that up to chance. And again, there might be rogues down the road where it's not such an issue, but with Skids, since he has access to the 45, he has access to the machete.
Yeah.
I don't like to leave it up to chance with the Switchblade.
And I mean, you look at something like knife. Like at least knife gives you +1 fight. Like this one's just fight. Or sorry, +1 combat. This one just says
Right.
just fight.
Now that this saves you the action, which if we're using the Netrunner click economy, could get you
Yeah.
then a resource to use for hard knocks to get you that +1 for one test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry.
It also takes up the
Adherence,
hand slot.
adherence of the Netrunner click economy equivalency. I'm sorry, but I super don't believe in that. It is like using BMI to assess someone's overall health. Anyway, that's a digression.
Yeah, wow, that was-
Moving on.
So yeah, I mean, again, I've built this build where you go all in on the two or more. You use the skill. You throw in a bunch of the neutral skills. I went hard in on burglary and hard knocks to use the resources to pump these skill tests up to make sure I'm succeeding by 2. And in the end, I feel like I was just using way more resources to get it to work than if I had just put in the machete and paid 2 more resources for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're here for a reason and you're getting Switchblade, it's because of that fast keyword and the 1 cost. But it's like, yeah, you're getting a weapon, but what is it doing for you to, you probably want a weapon either because it's boosting your combat or because it's amplifying the damage. It's not giving you any of the first, and it's potentially giving you the second, depending on if you can get that 2 or more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it would be best against like weaker enemies that you just need to polish off quickly, but you don't have a damage amplifying weapon to do it. That would be the best case scenario, I guess.
I mean, I don't know. I'd go one of at
Thanks.
most, and none of in most cases for me.
It's been a no for
In
me.
Skids. Skids is
In
so far the only rogue I've played, so that's all I can speak to. There might be a rogue in the future where this makes more sense, so we'll see.
Maybe. If they have a no, I don't like
So
it.
maybe there's a rogue in the future that says when you succeed a test, you're considered to have succeeded by 1 more point or something like that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden these
Okay.
cards become more playable. So I'm talking about Skids. It's unplayable for now.
Yeah.
Right.
For me.
Now let's talk about something good.
Tell you something good, Ian.
Oh yes, I'm glad I get this one. Cat Burglar is a 4
I
cost
have
asset.
deliberately set these up in this way, you realize.
That is much appreciated. So it's not just for yourself. That's
It's
good to
also
know.
super untrue, but hey, I'm glad it worked out for you.
So this costs 1 experience with a will and agility icon, ally, and criminal traits. You get +1 agility. As an action, you exhaust the cat burglar to disengage from each enemy engaged with you and move to a connecting location. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity with 2 health and 2 sanity and takes up the ally slot. For me, this guy has been an absolute MVP in the core campaign.
He's so good.
So good.
Like I don't know about you guys, but opening the box, I'm like, oh yeah, Mississippi Manatee all the way, always, whatever. Cat burger. And then I tried him out in a Wendy build, and I'm like, oh my god, so good.
Yep. Yes. So
Yeah.
good.
Wow.
So yeah.
It's just doing so much. You're getting +1 agility, so that's bumping both Skids and Windy up to 5, and then it's just combining so much at once. That with that single action, you're disengaging with all the enemies, and you're moving. Evade them, so keep that in mind. But still, it gets you out of so many tight spots.
Well, and there are so many. There's several situations specific to the core set campaign.
Yep. Yeah.
That this is like the silver bullet
Yes,
for
it
fixing those
is.
problems. So just like even specifically within the context of the core set campaign, this is real good.
Yeah, I could see this really good in scenario 3 at a
Yep.
certain point.
Mhm.
And even in scenario 2, when the night gaunts start coming out and you just don't want to have to deal with it, and you're like, oh nope, over here, come chase me.
See ya.
So
Yeah.
very
It'll be
very
interesting
positive
to
on this
see.
card.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out in other campaigns because it is such just like a help me win button for the core campaign. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out in other campaigns.
I feel like enemies are going to continue to be a thing that you want to evade in certain
Likely.
builds.
and you'll always want +1 agility. Yeah. It's
Thanks,
and for
Dr.
only
Sean.
1 XP.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super upgrade to this. Honestly, I think after having played around with both more Wendy than Skids, but played around with both, I think in most cases this is better than the Manatee. Ooh, I said it.
Yeah. I tend to upgrade to the Cat Burglar, I have to say.
Yeah. Man, it's such a toss up for me.
Now let's
Well,
talk about. Oh, I'm sorry. No, more on the Cat
just one
Burglar.
last thing. I guess I put a caveat on that. Solo, I tend to do that. If it's multiplayer, I might still go Leo because I'm probably planning on Skids killing stuff more so than dodging, but it depends.
Yeah. I think that extra action in solo is way more valuable because as a team, if you will, you're getting 33% more actions. Whereas in a 4-player game, what's going from 12
No, I'm not doing that
to
math.
13? It's a small amount.
It's
8%?
less. It's less. It's far
8 to
less.
9% ish. Like it's minimal, right? So yeah, I totally agree with you, Ian.
All right. So then moving on from the Cat Burglar is one of the more powerful cards in the Rogue set, I feel. Scott, you want to read Elusive?
Yeah, sure. It's a 2 cost, 0 level. It has a knowledge and agility pip. Intellect pip. Elusive, and it's a tactic fast. Play only during your turn. Disengage from each enemy engaged with you and move to a revealed location with no enemies.
Bamf! You become Nightcrawler.
Or a cat
See ya.
burglar.
Yeah, just. Oh my god, you can kite tank all the enemies with you and then just like, boom! Pop up across the map. I feel like there are going to be scenarios that this just breaks.
Yeah, if there's gonna be
Because
a card that wow.
What is most powerful about this card, or what is one of the things that is most powerful about this card? There's lots of things that are powerful about this card, but again, is what is not on this card, and that is the word non-elite.
Yeah.
You can just GTFO from any old situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
No spoilers.
It's so
But this is
good.
really good in Carnival.
Yes.
Oh,
Carnival
it saved my
is
butt
so
in that
good.
scenario.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. This might be
Oh,
This might be
yeah.
my new splash in my Ashcan deck when I take out Hard Knocks. Can you imagine this and Duke?
Just lightning fast.
Yeah, it's just all over the damn place. Anyway, sorry. Core only. But okay, so it's got flexible icons. It's fast, which is great. Doesn't take an action, so it leaves you 3 actions potentially to deal with or more after you've played it. So you can not only GTFO, but then you've got a lot of things to do in the place where you've vamped out. And I mean, this is basically like succeeding as many evade tests as you have enemies engaged with you if you're playing solo, more or less. I mean, it doesn't cancel Hunter, so it's not exactly the same, but as far as their threat to you goes, I don't know. I am very, very positive on this card. Now, that being said, I still have only ever gone one of, because it is a bomb card, but I don't know how many situations there are where I play this and it has that bomb effect. How many of you guys been including? Because this could go in either Wendy or Skids.
when I played solo Wendy on Carnival, like as a standalone, I put 2 in, but only because I wanted to see it, right? Like, and in that scenario, you could use it twice.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Definitely. Oh my
but
god.
otherwise, I
So
think
insane in
once,
Carnivale where like
it's
the movement around the locations is the mechanic of that
yeah, and you're just
scenario.
like, cool
Yeah.
mechanic, bro.
So crazy. You're just
2
like, oh, I'm
resources,
gonna take
ignore
this
it.
gondola over here while I pop my collar. See ya.
The magic of a popping collar.
It
The fun thing in that scenario was with Wendy, I could recur this from the top of my,
Oh, shut
the top
up.
event. Yeah, so she was just
You play
yeah.
teleporting.
2 of these and then the amulet, and it's like,
See ya. But yeah, I'm kind of with you, Sean, on the one of, because it's like one of those like dynamite type things where it's
yeah.
gonna get you out of a tight situation, but it's not necessarily something, scenario depending on scenario.
At the
Um,
very least, though, like, God, as long as there are no enemies at the location you're going to, this is like a 3 move action,
yeah,
right? Like,
that's the
God, maybe
thing.
I need to be
Yeah,
going 2 of on this one. I might be talking myself into it.
well, that's the thing. Even if you don't have any enemies to disengage with, it's just, yeah, if it's you're moving like 3 locations away, that saved you 3 actions.
Mhm.
It's a good card, but it does cost you
Yes.
2 resources, so there is that.
Mhm.
If and this is why click economy doesn't work for me. Like, if you're a rogue and you're stacking up on resources, as you sometimes do, more often than any other class, then you can't equate 2 actions to 2 resources because your resources now have a greater economy, so they're worth less to you. So anyway, um, rant over. But yeah, love this card. It's really fun. When you do something with it, it
Yeah,
feels
I
like
get.
cheating.
I
I
think it
guess it's
is.
just kind of map dependent type thing. Just
Yes,
because
that's probably
think
it.
about because that key thing that you can only move to a location that's only been revealed. So if you're in a map that's more linear, you might not be wanting to move backwards. But yeah,
And probably also better in multiplayer because you've got your teammates out there revealing locations that you've not been to yet.
Mhm.
And
and you
someone like
just pop up
Wendy.
behind them.
Yes, exactly. Someone like Wendy, and we'll get to her when we do the Survivor review. But I am gonna go ahead and call it that she's actually the best tank in the game. She's a dodge tank, but she's the best tank in the game. So someone like Wendy could play this card, pop up behind another enemy, engage it, evade it, and then play one of the events that we're about to talk about next, and just like the traversal, since the map is such a big part of this game, the ability to just traverse it with almost no limits. I mean, just the revealed is the only limit. That's, I don't know. I feel like this card's a bomb in this is lightning in a bottle, right?
Could be.
You guys aren't as positive on this card as I am. Is what I'm
I'm
sensing.
very positive in Carnival.
Yes.
I
Okay.
think the one in other, like, it could be crazy, but
All right. So then moving on from there, we have the skill that every rogue in every game where there's a rogue ever needs to have.
Yeah. Yep.
And that is Backstab. So it's a 3-cost event, has a combat and agility pip. It's a tactic, and has fight. This attack uses agility instead of combat. This attack deals +2 damage. +2 damage, guys. That's a lot of damage. So
Yep. True to the rogue
assuming,
way.
yeah. So I mean, assuming that your base damage is 1, as most of us are,
mhm.
have, is, whatever that verb needs to be. Um, that's really good. And since rogues, Skids in particular, this can go in Wendy, who has the same stat, have a pretty high agility. I see this being a staple in rogues going forward, as long as you've got a decent agility.
Yeah, I mean, it to me, it's kind of like a panic button. Like, you're paying 3 to do a single attack, instead of paying 3 for a weapon, but you are getting that agility instead of combat and stuff like that. But I find it quite expensive, and I think to me, it really is like oh crap.
It is spendy. It is spendy for an
Mhm.
event. But you're getting 3 damage out of it, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I find I end up using it more in Wendy than in Skids because Wendy just does not have
Yes.
many other options for damage, whereas Skids has all the all the Guardian cards that he can take, so he's got other options.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, definitely Wendy. This is two of, and this is like her main form of attack when she needs to kill something,
Yep.
right? As opposed to dodging it. Skids, I still tend to go two of just because it just being able to drop 3 on an enemy as opposed to 2 can be pretty clutch in certain situations. But there are times where I don't necessarily end up using it. So more important than Wendy, but still key for Skids.
And I think
Mhm.
the usage of this will continue to fortify as long as we continue to get rogues who have high agility over their combat. So,
Mhm.
all right, moving
Right.
on from there is something in a very similar vein, I feel, but a little bit different. So, Ian, would you like to read Gandalf? I mean, sneak attack.
Yes, I'd love to. Sneak attack is a 2-cost event with the intellect icon and combat icon. It has the tactic trait deal 2 damage to an exhausted enemy at your location. Love this card. This together with Backstab do a lot to kind of really add that flavor to Rogue for me. That it's kind of based in that D&D RPG world of like, oh, rogues do sneak attacks and backstabs, but I love it for that reason. And
Mhm.
I do think it helps a lot to kind of give some more options to putting damage on enemies outside of just straight fight tests.
Which I appreciate. And that's one thing that kind of on the overall design of the game I love is that every class can kind of get there. They just get there in different ways and at different costs.
Mhm.
And as we discussed earlier with that high evade and with the cat burglar, you're probably not that far from having an exhausted enemy at your location most of the time.
Yeah, and I'm glad
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be an enemy that you've exhausted. It's
yes,
just an exhausted enemy,
This
right?
is
So
true.
yeah. So if someone evades it, you can just run up there and sneak attack. um,
mhm.
and there's something always to be said for damage that's not tied to a test. It's
Yes.
pay 2 to get 2 damage with no possibility of failure. That
There's
that
lots to
kind
be
of thing.
said for damage that's not tied to a test.
Yeah. The test has already been done when you exhausted them.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
All right. Seems good.
All right.
So moving on to a couple upgrades here then. I think this one's me. So we're going to go ahead and throw the nod out to Netrunner in the title anyway. And this is Sure Gamble, which is a level 3 event. It costs 2. It has the Fortune and Insight traits and is fast. Play after you reveal a Chaos token with a negative modifier. Switch that token's negative to a positive. I feel like this is the first card you buy in hard mode and beyond.
Yeah, no kidding.
Plus
Turn
8,
that
bitch.
negative, yeah, and turn that -8 upside down. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but beyond that, I mean, this is kind of similar to the Survivor event that we'll talk about later, Lucky, but this isn't contingent on failing a test, though I assume most of the time you're only going to play this um, when you would fail a test, but it doesn't require it, so it's more
Mhm.
flexible that way.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
one,
this is lucky
go for it.
that experience,
Mm-hmm.
I find. So I like it. It's a pretty late upgrade for me as
Yeah.
far as skids. I have done it before where one of my campaigns, we literally got the maximum XP in the first and second scenario. So just like, I have all this XP. How do I spend it? And I think I upgraded one card into this. And it was handy because I knew it's like, well, I just pay 2 and I basically pass. Unless you get like a skull token and it means -5 or something, right? Like it's has to be the number, but
And what I love about this, and I'm going to go ahead and break our little our core set only thing as we've been strategically doing throughout these reviews. And talk about a card we've had spoiled called Double or Nothing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Double or Nothing lets you double the difficulty of a given test, and then if you still succeed it, you double the effects of succeeding it.
Mhm.
And that's what's so perfect about this. Like, you're taking a gamble on Double or Nothing, and then you play Sure Gamble because it's a sure gamble. And chances are, if the numbers work out properly, you'll succeed it. Because most of the time, you're pulling a negative. Occasionally, you'll pull a positive, but that's the exception, not the rule. And yeah, no, I mean, 3's a lot of experience, though. I kind of wish this was sitting at 2.
It is expensive.
Yeah, I
But
feel like for that reason, that's why it kind of sits as a mid-range buy for me. And of course, all these, when we're talking about that, we were talking about in the core campaign so far. We'll see how it shakes out in a much longer campaign. But usually there's other stuff on my shopping list first, and then this comes into consideration. I feel like this is kind of built as a way to enable some of those other effects that are like if you succeed by 2 or more. But so far,
mm-hmm.
that's not usually why you buy Sure Gamble, because that's not a very like consistent reason for including those other cards like Switchblade and the Derringer.
Man,
But
it's
this
too
is more.
bad. It's too bad that the
This
same
is
person.
more. Yeah, this is more like the hedging your bets, and you could even take a test down by 1 or 2 and kind of hope that this will push you over. So it's just kind of a good card to have in hand that you can kind of ride your luck for a while until you need it.
It
Until you
is
need to play this
literally the
card.
ace up your sleeve.
Yep.
And it's too bad that a single investigator can't have this and shotgun in the same deck, though I'm sure that's probably intentional.
Oh, sweet
This
sassy Molassie.
this shotgun and Double or Nothing.
Yeah.
Just dead boss, one hit. But that can't happen, so it's all right. The game is balanced. It's okay. This is a good thing.
Only in our dreams, Sean. Only in our dreams.
Okay. So then moving from there, which is funny because though this card is named Sure Gamble, which is a nod to Netrunner, the next card is actually a nod to Netrunner in its effects to Sure
Yes.
Gamble. So Ian, why don't you go ahead and read Hot Streak?
So Hot Streak is a 3-cost event that costs 4 experience. It has a wild icon, the fortune trait, and simple enough, you gain 10 resources. So note that you're actually netting 7. You're not getting 10 total. You're paying 3 to get 10, but that's still a good deal.
And Netrunner enthusiasts would, encourage you to realize that you're only netting 6 because you're also paying the action to play this card.
Sure.
No, it's bullshit. Don't listen to Click Economy. It's oversimplifying a complex system. Yeah. 4 experience, though, is not nothing. Though that is a lot of damn resources. I don't think I've ever had the experience to put this in a deck, so I have no experience actually playing with it. Have you guys?
No, I think I've always found better cards to play. Or, I mean, like at least upgrade into.
I definitely have. Yet again, it's build dependent. I feel like Rogue in general, compared to some of the other classes, just kind of has a set of like different builds in it. It doesn't just lead you in one direction. But the thing I like about it is, especially if I am including Hot Streak, I'm really hoping I get it in the opening hand and try to mulligan
Oh
for it,
my god.
because
That's an
what it allows
explosive opening.
yeah, because what it allows me to do is dump those extra resources on Skids, and then I'm set for a few turns, even without bothering with Burglar or gathering extra resources. I can pretty much count on getting a couple things down and still having a somewhat leftover ability a few times over the next few turns to get some extra action. So that's what I really kind of look at it with for Skids. For other rogues in the future, we'll see. But obviously resources are going to continue to be important for rogues. So if you're going talent heavy, obviously that gives you a stockpile for that as well. So It does a lot of work. It's not necessarily my. Well, that's not true. I think I have bought it first because I was aiming for that.
And then mulligan hard.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's nothing that lets you pull events at this point in the game, is there? I don't think so.
Not yet.
No.
And I only say that I'm fairly well versed in the core cards. I'm only saying that because I actually am not that well versed in the new Dunwich cards that we have for Rogue. So anyway, so yeah, seems decent. Rogues like resources, so it seems like a good idea. Buy it. So the last card, and this is the one I've been referencing the whole time we've been talking about the 2 or more cards. Although this one doesn't even fit that cast. This is a 3 or more card. Is Opportunist. So I believe, Scott, would you close us out here with Opportunist?
Sure thing. Level 0 skill. It's got 1 wild icon, Pip, innate, and commit only to a skill test you are performing. If you succeed by 3 or more, return Opportunist to your hand after this test instead of discarding it.
3 or more, guys. How often do you succeed a test by 3 or more?
Why 3 or more?
How often do you succeed a test you care about by 3 or more?
Yeah. That's a lot.
Not often.
I really, really, really want to like this card because I like the idea of fixing luck and I like that thread within Rogue. But oh my god, this falls apart so quickly. Like I said, I went hard in on this the first time I built Skids. I went Derringer, I went Switchblade, I went Opportunist, I went all the money with Hard Knocks. And one tentacle just took it all apart because both Opportunists went away, all those Hard Knocks resources are wasted, my Burglar was exhausted. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I don't mind. I don't mind counting on succeeding because that's what I'm trying to do anyway. But I really, really am dubious about succeeding by 3 or more or 2 or more. I don't know. I want to like these cards, but I super don't after having used them.
Yeah, I try to build like you did, Sean, the whole overcommit everything.
Right, because it sounds really freaking fun.
But it's really bad.
It's really, really bad.
Yeah.
Either that or I'm just cursed. All right, Ian, defend your cards.
I have no defense for this one. I feel like when you play down this card on the table, it's just inviting the Chaos Bag to punch you in the face with the tentacle.
It sure is.
No matter how much you overcommitted. That 3 or more is killer. It doesn't even fit the 2 or more. There may be a build or investigator in the future that can use this, but it doesn't exist so far. I don't know. Like even as a 1 wild icon, I'd rather just have Unexpected Courage and just have 2 wilds and call it a day. I don't want to take up space in my deck for it. So yeah, it's a 0 for me. I think it's the weakest of the class skills in the core.
I think it's the weakest of any skill in the core.
I wouldn't play it.
I like, God, it's so sad because I really, really want to like it. I truly do. That mechanic seems really interesting to me, but
it would be super cool.
Yeah, but it super doesn't come together. I mean, it might come together for like a turn, and then it falls apart. At least in my experience. And I played through 2 campaigns with that single build, so I don't know. It's possible. I'm just unlucky, but yeah. Again, if we get that investigator in the future who's like, "Hey, you're considered to succeed tests by 2 more" or something like that, then maybe this becomes pretty cool. But okay. Yeah. So, Ian, do you want to take us out with any final thoughts on the Rogue class or Skids in particular?
Sure. Now, some might be tempted to look at this group of core cards and say, there's a couple of stinkers in here compared to some of the other classes we looked at. You wouldn't be wrong, but I will say that Rogue is all about the highs and lows, just like a gambler, Sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. You like my sales pitch so far? There are some, there are some key cards in the class that really sell it for me, like Backstab and Sneak Attack and Burglary, that just really get across that theme. And Rogue is really just about riding that line and gathering your resources. And sometimes you're just all about pumping a lot into one big test and hoping for the best. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So I think out of the Coruscant investigators, I would agree that Skids is it's not an easy investigator or class to pick up on right away. You really have to do some tinkering because there are a few different builds and figure out what works for you to eventually get to there's not like a clear line to it like some of the other classes like Guardian or Mystic, like this is the way to win. You kind of have to do some experimenting with it to get to kind of the build that works for you, is what I would say.
All right. Scott, anything to add?
I think I'm going to play Skids a little bit more. Ian, maybe I'll take a little advice from you, but I am super what's her name? The new green lady.
Jenny.
There we go.
Jenny!
I always get confused. Her and Zoe, because it's Jenny Barnes, right?
Yep.
And Zoe something.
Samaras?
Yeah, but
Samurai.
I watch House of Cards, and so I think Zoe Barnes from the first season. She's a character, but
I haven't
anyways,
seen that show yet, but I assume that's a fun reference.
she's a very important character in that show.
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyways, I think I'm going to enjoy Jenny a bit more. I think just having that 3-3-3-3 flat, I think it'll be really interesting.
I am
and being
intrigued.
rich.
I am intrigued.
Yeah.
Jenny's gonna be pretty awesome.
What tends to happen in characters that I make myself for RPGs is that I want to be good at everything, so I end up being great at nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like by accident. Like I set out to be like, all right, this is gonna be this character is gonna be good at X and Y, and then he ends up being okay at X and Y and also Z, X, Y, and Z, and D and A and C and B. So I don't know. God, Jenny seems so. I'm looking at her right now. I must try her. But
I mean, I think it was Mr. Trench in the chat who said like get her guns with like 20 ammo on it. Just
Jenny's got
just go ham.
Yeah.
No more Miss Barnes from you, my friends. Call me Jenny.
Yeah. Oh man.
Although I'm going to be honest. I think I preferred the art from Elder Sign. She looked way more badass in Elder Sign.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so thank you for joining us on the first run of Core Set reviews here. I'm going to go ahead and get our plugs right this time. So, guys, help me. We have a Twitch channel, which is where we did this. You're likely watching it on our YouTube channel, so also subscribe to that. When we're not doing YouTube reviews, we primarily do a podcast, which you can find at mythosbusters.wordpress.com.
There you go.
We, of course, have a Facebook page, so find us there. We are on Twitter at mythosbusters.com. And we also help curate a Discord server, which we would encourage you to come and join and just partake in some informal chat about the game and other things, it turns out, as well. And you can find that at discord.me/mythosbusters. What am I missing? Did I get it right this time?
I think that's everything. Or close to it.
Yes, we got it. All right, so hey, 1 for 3 is not terrible. Thank you for your faith, Kyrisaurus. Guys, thank you for joining us on this first one. We'll be churning out the next 3, so we still have Seekers and Survivors and the Neutrals to talk about, so stay tuned for those. I'll probably be out in the next couple weeks. And otherwise, we will see you next time for the Miskatonic AV Club, a Mythos Busters production.